It's 114 days to election 2016, and Politicos is here to serve you everything political as far as elections are concerned. You are welcome to Politicos on Citi TV with me, Umaru Sanda Amadu. This week, alongside looking at the Electoral Commission and the deletion of the names of NHIS card registrants, among other issues, we'll also be talking about Sani Abacha, the former leader, the late leader of Nigeria. Apparently, he gave some money to President Rawlings at the time, who was ruling Ghana in the 90s. That money at the time was disputed because the amount was 5 million. New information revealed suggests it's 2 million. Should we be asking questions of our former head of state, Jerry John Rawlings? That and more here on Politicos on Citi TV. To our first story now, let's go to Nigeria and talk about the late Sani Abacha. Apparently, Ghanaians should be more interested in his so-called loot because if you remember, Sani Abacha has been referred to as one person who raped Nigeria of its resources, one ruthless dictator. Apparently, Ghana has benefited, or an individual here in Ghana has benefited. Fred Tete Jabano is following that story for us. So, what is the connection between the late military ruler of Nigeria, Abacha, and our own former military ruler at the time and former head of state, President Jerry John Rawlings?
If you knew Sani Abacha at the time and President Rawlings, they seemed to be very good friends. At the time Sani Abacha was in power, he didn't really have so much support if it comes to Western powers. During that same period, President Rawlings seemed to be the darling boy of the Western powers because Ghana had just transited into democracy, constitutional rule. So President Rawlings was more or less doing the bidding of Sani Abacha if it comes to international politics, having to getting him a good name, defending some of his options.
In the light of all the allegations against him that he was corrupt, he was ruthless, he needed someone to help him justify his stature on the continent.
So former president more or less was a PR person for Sani Abacha if it comes to the Western world or international politics, just to give him some validation in the sight of the world.
And then there was an exchange of money. In the 90s, the newspapers published, and in fact there was a claim, there was not a claim, it was actually an attempt to drag the president before a parliamentary inquiry. That fell flat because the amount involved at the time was what, $5 million?
Exactly. That
Abacha was supposed to have sent to Rawlings.
It's published by the Chronicle newspaper somewhere in 1998, where President Rawlings was accused of taking $5 million from Sani Abacha. This was reported in Nigeria, and the Ghanaian reporter here had to go to Nigeria, do some investigations, came up with the story. It even became a big issue in Parliament, where minority members of Parliament, led by Hackman Owusu-Agyemang, had to raise issues in Parliament, and even they were pushing for the impeachment of the president. They wanted the president to come and answer questions, but the majority members of Parliament denied this issue of 5 million gifts being given to President Rawlings. President Rawlings was quiet about the issue, but his ministers and his MPs denied it and said this was a total lie. Nothing like that happened.
More than a decade later.
Years after, the former president is alleged to have granted an interview to the Guardian newspaper in Nigeria, where he admits accepting $2 million and not $5 million from Abacha.
So there was an acceptance. He received some money.
Exactly. According to the former president, he received some $2 million, not $5 million. But this $2 million was to help Ghana because Ghana had just gone into constitutional rule, and we needed some funds to be able to do the transition very well. So he accepted the money as a gift from Sani Abacha. According to him, the money was used for national purposes. The money was not put in any account of his. He didn't use the money for any personal activity. He distributed the money through his secretaries and ministers at that time to help them and to do certain things.
Prior to election 2008, this matter would have been a big deal. There would have been a lot of support from the NDC and there would have been a lot of attack from the NPP. Are we seeing that?
No. Surprisingly, the aides of the former president have decided not to say any comment, make any comment.
How about the party?
Party hasn't really made any comment also on this.
That's the NDC party. How about the opposition NPP?
The opposition,
Hackman spoke.
the leading member of parliament at that time in 1996, Hackman Oswajiman, spoke on the issue. He says that he was glad that after a decade and over, the president, former President Rawlings, has accepted the fact that some monies exchange hands. And for him, the fact that he's spoken the truth about the money, it should end there.
But the party hasn't officially said it.
The party hasn't officially.
That's interesting. But still on that Guardian interview that Jerry Rawlings had, we hear also that he spoke about John Kufuor, his successor, and the former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo. That has also been disputed now.
So he said that John Kufuor and Obasanjo were asked or were being used by Western powers to ask Muammar Gaddafi to step down as leader.
Zimbabwe, you mean? Robert Mugabe?
Robert Mugabe, sorry. It's Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe to step down as leader and president of the country. He says that this didn't go well, it didn't succeed. But the spokesperson for the former president, Frank Ejekun, has denied this and says nothing of the sort happened. President Kufuor and President Obasanjo were never asked to do such a thing.
I see. Very well. So that's the story for you coming from the Guardian newspaper in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Fred Tete Jabano. So the report, President Rawlings confirms receipt of some $2 million from the late Nigerian president Abacha in the late 90s. He has since disputed that it's a bribe. But what we found interesting is that none of the political parties, the NDC and the NPP, who ordinarily would have taken issue with this matter, have been silent, strangely, on the matter. Let's go to the Electoral Commission now. It's 114 days to election 2016, but we don't look ready. At least that's what critics of the Electoral Commission and the electoral process say. But before we even get to that, the Supreme Court had ruled some time back that persons who registered using the NHIS card should have their names deleted. After a long back and forth, the court has finally cemented that ruling, and we are told that has happened. What was the procedure? Was it welcomed by everybody involved? Sixtus Donwulo is a man who watches the Electoral Commission closely. Sixtus, you are welcome to Politicos. The Electoral Commission has been announcing this week the modalities and even publishing names of persons who it claimed registered using the NHIS card. What has been the outcome or the reaction from the public and the political parties and other stakeholders involved?
Well, Sanda, the political parties didn't seem so bothered about it when we spoke with them. They didn't seem so bothered that the Electoral Commission went ahead to delete those 56,000 names without any prior consultations with them. They didn't seem bothered also that the Electoral Commission seemed not to have involved them in the modalities for the re-registration. Of course, we know the Commission is an independent body and does not necessarily have to consult them. But this is one of the thorniest issues that we have seen in this particular country lately, in the run-up to the elections. But speaking with the political parties, NDC, NPP particularly, the NDC seems so comfortable with it. The NPP says that for them, they think the process is still ongoing, and who knows, they might just come up with something.
I see. But talking about the modalities itself, we know that they have started publishing in the newspapers and on news websites these names of persons who have been deleted. Have there been any challenges? Has anyone raise an objection that their name has been published where they know they haven't registered with NHIS, or someone who didn't register with NHIS but found his name in there? Have there been any issues coming up as yet?
None so far. The only concerns we have heard so far came from the Let My Vote Counts Alliance group. This group of people think that the EC, in fact, they even claim the list the EC has presented to the Supreme Court and subsequently gone ahead to delete is fictitious, or at least inaccurate in their own words. So far, that is the only group of persons that has expressed any concerns about it. But the core political parties, key stakeholders in this matter, we haven't heard anything from them yet. And it's not surprising, because you would have to consider the fact that majority of the people who would be affected by this deletion may be people who can who do not have access to the internet services, to the website, to the newspapers. These are people who may rely on public service broadcasting, for instance, to get information to that effect. And so it might not be so surprising that we don't hear the public reaction, full public reaction to this particular issue. It might not be so.
But they have also told us that from July 18th, they're going to start re-registering these persons. Have they told us what mode of identification they'll be requiring from these persons who are going to register afresh?
Surprisingly, Sanda, they are relying on, should I say, the same documents that we have always relied on, save the National Health Insurance cards. The argument is that following the Supreme Court's judgment on the matter, we cannot go back to the use of the NHIS, NHI cards, but we can go on to rely on the passport, the driver's license, and all the other documents that they have always used in the past.
But they issued a statement in which they have not mentioned the existing voter card, so maybe that challenge would be sorted out. But so there are other issues that they are going to roll out over the period. They talk about the exhibition and so
exhibition,
on.
Yes, Sanda. They have the voters exhibition. They have the exhibition of the voters register coming up. And one of the challenges people have with this particular process is how it has come to coincide with the re-registration of persons who might have been deleted from the current register. Because you realize that it's within the same, exactly, within the same period. So if you are not keen enough, you might get the processes mixed up. So one would have thought that we would have taken it one step at a time, at least delete the names, re-register the persons, then you go ahead to exhibit.
But we don't have time, do we? You know what's happening in Parliament. We still don't know when we are voting.
Sanda, that is exactly why the other political parties are arguing that we don't necessarily have to have the elections on 7th November. We can have it on 7th December, you see, but the law will still be amended anyways, so that it will take effect in the coming elections. Yeah.
Thank you. Don Ulo is a man who watches the Electoral Commission and all issues surrounding that as we prepare for the elections. Like I said, it's 114 days to the elections. If you do not have your voter's ID card already, you should be going to the registration centers that the Electoral Commission will be opening on Monday. And that's, of course, if your name has been deleted because you used the NHIS card to register, among other issues. You can call to the district offices of the Electoral Commission. I understand there are a lot of processes happening there. You can have your name registered ahead of the election if you don't want to miss out on November 7 or December 7. Well, that's how we end today's edition of Politicos, which came to you here on Citi TV. My name is Umaru Sanda Amadu. Join us next week for another exciting package.